हाँ जी, it is okay. In the last moments of their life, they then also realize that while they were looking throughout their lives for a more complete sense of self, what they were really looking for was what they were really looking for their being had actually always already been there, but had been largely obscured by their identification with things, which ultimately means identification with their mind. Blessed are the poor in spirit, Jesus said, for theirs will be the kingdom of heaven. What does poor in spirit mean? No inner baggage, no identification, not with things, nor with any mental concepts that have a sense of self in them. And what is the kingdom of heaven? The simple but profound joy of being is that when you let go of identifications and so become poor in spirit. So, what is he trying to say here? Everything that we identify with the thought of the mind or the egoistic part of the mind of ownership has a validity, has an expiry date. Because anything and everything that is outside of you has is not permanent. It never will be. So ये जो सारे concepts हम ownership की देते हैं, like when he is talking about the example of a guy who's pointing out at a big skyscraper that this building is mine. ये building मेरी है. So either you're wealthy rich and this building is owned by you, or you're just a delusional person who's having this fantasies, or you're a big time liar. But the real ownership is never of an object, because that real ownership has a validity, it has an expiry date. कल को वो बिल्डिंग अर्थक्वेक से गिर गई, quite possible. The government passes a law or takes over. Anything and everything is possible. But do you think that building is going to remain yours forever? Because the real you will keep going and coming. But this physical body, which is again belongs to planet Earth, does not go with you. So जो हम वो आइडेंटिफिकेशन और वो ओनरशिप जो उस बिल्डिंग के लिए या किसी भी ऑब्जेक्ट के लिए कर रहे हैं, that identification is truly of the character or the body you are living in on planet Earth for this particular lifetime. So it's a character play where that character, this physical body with this mind, is a partial owner of something. But does it belong to who you truly are? Because ये character भी आपका एक it's just a play for you, which has a validity. The body is not eternal. And once the spirit moves out of this body, बॉडी यहीं रह जाएगी, उसका क्रियाक्रम होगा, या इट विल बी दफनाई जाती है, या उसको We go to the Shimshan Ghat and, we burn the body or whatever is depending on what religion. So this body also has a validity. And this character, जिसका आज जो भी नाम है, that's the character you're playing here for a limited life, limited period. So any possession is only associated with the character. But that is your character. That's a role you're playing. That is not exactly who you truly are. Because you've had so many of these characters over the various reincarnations you've had. ये कोई पहला नहीं है और ये शायद ये कोई आखिरी भी ना हो. You never know what's in store for you. But anything and everything which is here that you associate yourself with as the owner of it or as the possessor of it is just short-lived with that character, because that character is short-lived. This body has a expiry date of, a validity period. But who you truly are, it's not there. It's eternal. आज इस बॉडी में था, नेक्स्ट इनकारनेशन में किसी और बॉडी में किसी और यूनिफॉर्म में जाएगा, इससे पहले किसी और बॉडीज में था, और हर एक बॉडी की अपनी पोजीशंस होंगी. There's a very beautiful message. I'll probably read it out to you guys. So it's basically talks about, what is our true existence here on the planet. What is it that we are actually looking for? It's like when you are born, your name is given by somebody else. Your first bath is given by somebody else. So your birth is given by others. Some connection with the show. I'll post it. It talks a lot about, your true existence here on planet Earth, where everything when you come is done by others. And once, the soul moves away from the body, each and every rite, your last bath, your, last clothes change, everything will be done by others. So then you basically need to realize जब मैंने यहाँ पे आके कुछ किया ही नहीं, या जो भी मैंने आज एसोसिएशन करी ये मेरा है, वो तो इधर ही रह जाएगा. It's not going to go away with you, because that has a limited validity and an expiry date on planet Earth. So nothing goes with you, and nothing actually truly belongs to you. We live in that illusion of that ownership, that I own this, but that's owned by the character. And that's not who you truly are. Because when you say, this is my body and this is my mind, who is the my here? Is body the my, or is mind the my? Or you, the soul that, has the body or the mind belongs to the soul or is given to the soul as a gift. That's your true identity. And when you start thinking from those lines, then you realize that anything and everything which I am supposedly alleging that I am the owner is just a mere illusion. This is why renouncing all possessions has been an ancient spiritual practice in both East and West. Renunciation of possessions, however, will not automatically free you of the ego. It will attempt to ensure its survival by finding something else to identify with. For example, a mental image of yourself as someone who has transcended all interest in material possessions and is therefore superior, is more spiritual than others. There are people who have renounced all possessions but have a bigger ego than some millionaires. If you take away one kind of identification, the ego will quickly find another. It ultimately doesn't mind what it identifies with as long as it has an identity. Anti consumerism or anti private ownership would be another thought form, another mental position that can replace identification with possession. Am I audible, guys? Can you hear me? Check, check. Hello. Am I audible? Sure,
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Okay, great. So there are people who have, if you take away any kind of identification, the ego will quickly find another. It ultimately doesn't mind what it identifies with as long as it has an identity. Anti consumerism or anti private ownership would be another thought form, another mental position that can replace identification with possessions. Through it, you could make yourself right and others wrong. As we shall see later, making yourself right and others wrong is one of the principal egoic mind patterns, one of the main forms of unconsciousness. In other words, the content of ego may change, the mind structure that keeps it alive does not. One of the unconscious assumptions is that by identifying with an object through the fiction of ownership, the apparent solidity and permanency of that material object will endow your sense of self and with greater solidity and permanency. This applies particularly to buildings and even more so to land, since it is the only thing you think you can own that cannot be destroyed. The absurdity of owning something becomes even more apparent in the case of land. In the days of the white settlement, the natives of North America found ownership of land an incomprehensible concept. And so they lost it when Europeans made them sign pieces of paper that were equally incomprehensible to them. They felt they belonged to the land, but the land did not belong to them. The ego tends to equate having with being. I have, therefore I am. And the more I have, the more I am. The ego lives through comparison. Have you, how you are seen by others turns into how you see yourself. If everyone lived in a mansion or everyone was wealthy, your mansion or your wealth would no longer serve to enhance your sense of self. You could then move to a simple cabin, give up our wealth, and regain an identity by seeing yourself as being seen as more spiritual than others. How you are seen by others becomes the mirror that tells you that you are like, who you are, what you are like, and what and who you are. The ego's sense of self-worth is in most cases bound up with the worth you have in the eyes of others. You need others to give you a sense of self. And if you live in a culture that to a large extent equates self-worth with how much and what you have. If you cannot look through this collective delusion, you will be condemned to chasing after things for the rest of your life in the vain hope of finding your worth and completion of your sense of self. How do you let go of attachment to things? Don't even try, it's impossible. Attachment to things drop away by itself when you no longer seek to find yourselves in them. In the meantime, just be aware of your attachment to things. Sometimes you may not know that you're attached to something, which is to say, until you lose it or there is a threat of loss, if you then become upset, anxious, and so on. It means you are attached. If you are aware that you are identified with a thing, the identification is no longer total. I am the awareness that is aware that there is attachment. That's the beginning of the transformation of consciousness. So, what is he trying to tell you is very clearly that a lot of people have used the past of renunciation. साधु बन गए, हिमालय पे चले गए, सब कुछ किया. A lot of people do succeed, but not necessary that if you renounce everything, that the ego dissolves. The ego can cling on to anything that it which it identifies with it. So it's quite possible that the person who's renounced everything in life, including his house and everything, still has a very bloated ego that I have so much of knowledge. I mean, that's one basic thing for which a lot of people on this path of spirituality get and start boosting and start massaging their egos with this thought that I have a lot of knowledge. And the question here to everybody, is this knowledge yours? Does this knowledge belong to you? And the answer is, this knowledge of spirituality, of everything we're doing on this path, is always an acquired knowledge. And it is never yours. आपने कोई बुक्स पढ़ी, आपने कोई कोर्सेज किए, आपने you met with like-minded people and you acquired the knowledge by by them sharing it with you, or you sharing your knowledge with them. That's how you were able to gain knowledge on this. So where is the ego? But that identification of anybody and everybody that this is mine, चाहे वो नॉलेज हो, चाहे वो कोई ऑब्जेक्ट हो, चाहे वो कोई थॉट फॉर्म हो, वहां इशू है. So not necessary by renunciating or by following the process of renunciation, you will be able to silence the ego or let go of the ego. Not possible. But yes, when you work on that concept of identification and start working with that thought that am I being identified by this? Is this truly mine? That is the key where we need to actually check ourselves and concentrate and focus on that state of being. A lot of times there is this definition that comes to me where everybody talks about it at one point of the stage when you're on this path of spirituality. It's the journey from being to doing, or doing to being. It's both ways. Where you are depends. So when you're in the journey of doing, from being to doing, is where you are pumping in the ego. I am doing this. This is being done by me. I am the creator. I am the one. And that is where the identification is coming in with you, or your association with that thought of that I am doing this. That's stage one, where we are inflating the ego. I have got good marks. This is mine. This is my reward. Everything is being associated where you are the one who is the supreme hero, supreme doer. आपके जैसा तो बंदा ही कोई नहीं है दुनिया में. And then it hits you. What's truly mine when you start changing and reversing this concept and go from being to doing to being, where everything is being done through me. I am not doing anything. I am just a via medium. So if you talk about an example, if this body is conducting this book reading, so this book reading class is being done through me. I am actually not the doer, but it is being done through me. So I am partially there where the act is being done through me. Because anything and everything, there has to be a doer who has to perform. But when we take away that attachment from the word or the perspective of doing things, that's where we are letting go or letting rid of that egoistic part of the mind, where I am not the doer, it is being done through me for mine and your best and highest interest. Basic, plain, simple detachment. Because it's very difficult to detach yourselves. And one of the basic rules of detachment is attachment. It's funny, but yeah, that's true. So if you're attached to something and you want to be detached from that thing, just by saying, I want to be detached from it, does not work a lot. 99.99% it does not work. Yeah, 0.01% chance, always possible. But the way to get to detachment is always through attachment. I'll explain it again. So if I am attached to, say, a particular thing, I am attached to, say, materialistic things. So in order to remove or be detached to materialistic things, I will have to shift my perspective of attachment with materialistic things towards a bigger and a higher attachment, and probably that attachment could be of the divine being, God, universe, or whatever. So the basic approach that works in any kind of a detachment is always through a higher attachment, because the mind does play a trick. It's very difficult to say I am being detached. अब हो क्या रहा है, मैं कहता हूँ मेरी attachment मेरे को I am, say, for example, I am a foodie and I am very fond of food, but I want to lose weight. I detach myself of the food. अंदर ही अंदर क्या हो रहा है माइंड में, यार बड़ी भूख लग रही है यार, ऐसे कैसे होगा यार, मैं कैसे चलूंगा, इतनी देर क्या होगा. So you can't just blindly go say I detach myself and then harm your own self by all the thoughts. And then अगर गुस्सा आ रहा है, कोई रिजेंटमेंट आ रही है, कोई गिल्ट भी आ रहा है, उसी को पी जाओ अंदर, बॉडी के अंदर स्टोर करी जाओ. यू विल एंड अप विद अ लॉट ऑफ स्टेट्स ऑफ डिसीजेस. बट अगर हम उस अटैचमेंट को खत्म करने हैं, डिटैच करना है, And if we get a higher attachment, which is for our highest interest, it's like detaching yourself from the outside and getting more attached to you, to what is inside of you. That is where the detachment works, because that attachment kahin na kahin has that motivation for you. Detachment say it's very difficult approach, because you will be, there will be so many emotions, and you will be just, storing those emotions rather than living those emotions. So if there is a grief, it's in any kind of situation where there is grief, it is better to experience that emotion rather than hold, because all emotions are required. ये ना सोचो कि यार ये इमोशन अच्छा है कि बुरा है. कोई इमोशन अच्छा बुरा नहीं होता. इमोशन इज एन इमोशन. If you are judging an emotion, that's not emotion, that's the mind at play. So when we are talking about detachment from any kind of a thing, don't store your emotions and feeling inside. वो और खराब करेंगे rather than having a good effect. Look for a higher attachment. So start attaching yourself from external things towards what is internal or inside of you. That's the true way. That's one of the most effective ways of detachment through higher attachment. Wanting the need for more. The ego identifies with having, but its satisfaction in having is a relatively shallow and short lived one. Concealed within remains a deep seated sense of dissatisfaction, of incompleteness, of not enough. I don't have enough yet, by which the ego really means I am not enough yet. As we have seen, having the concept of ownership is a fiction created by the ego to give itself solidity and permanency and make itself stand out, make itself special. Since you cannot find yourself through having, however, there is another more powerful drive underneath it that pertains to the structure of the ego, the need for more, which we could also call wanting. No ego can last for long without the need for more. Therefore, wanting keeps the ego alive much more than having. The ego wants to want more than it wants to have. And so the shallow satisfaction of having is always replaced by more wanting. This is the psychological need for more, that is to say, more things to identify with. It is an addictive need, not an authentic one. In some cases, the psychological need for more, or the feeling of not enough, that it's so characteristic of the ego, becomes transferred to the physical level, and so turns into insatiable hunger. The sufferers of bulimia will often make themselves vomit so they can continue eating. Their mind is hungry, not their body. The eating disorder would become healed if the sufferers, instead of being identified with their mind, could get in touch with their body and so feel the true needs of the body rather than the pseudo needs of the ego mind. So ये जो concept जिसमें that need or that want to have more, so it's like I want something. somehow अगर हम इसको एक बिगर पिक्चर में देखें ना, so anybody who comes out with this perspective that I want this, so there is always an underlying thought which says मेरे पास है नहीं, that is why I want it. So deep down, when it's, whenever we are referring to this particular word or this situation where we are wanting something, it's coming from a premise of मेरे पास है नहीं तो मुझे चाहिए. बड़ा एक नेगेटिव कनोशन क्रिएट हो जाता है with this whole concept of when you are wanting some things. And I always like to replace this word want with desire. I desire this. I mean, it's a very simple way of looking at things. When I say, or when anybody says I desire this, means मेरे पास नहीं है definitely, but अगर मिल जाएगा तो मजा बहुत आएगा. But if the same thing is said I want this, has a very strong negative connotation attached to it, stating that मेरे पास नहीं है, that is why I probably feel incomplete, and that is why I want it. So try and always replace your concepts of want or need to desire. Because when you say I desire this, so there, you are trying to create a possibility that that thing gets attracted towards you, and it's not coming from a premise of lack. It's coming from a premise of abundance. We need to always focus on our language for that. So wanting is always that egoistic part. और वो egoistic part, जैसे हमने इस चैप्टर में पढ़ा, कंपैरिजन से बहुत स्ट्रांगली डोमिनेट होता है. उसके पास है, मेरे पास नहीं है, आई वॉन्ट दिस. उसके पास है, वेरी नाइस, इट हैज एक्सीलेंट फ्यूचर्स, आई डिजायर इट, इट्स ऑन माई विश लिस्ट नाउ. But if it's coming from that negative premise of lack of comparison, what are we trying to create? What are we trying to manifest? Certain kinds of feeling of lack. Because deep down, with this connotation, the underlying factor is I lack it, that is why I want it. Some egos know what they want and pursue their aim with grim and ruthless determination. Genghis Khan, Stalin, Hitler, to give just a few larger than life examples. The energy behind their wanting, however, creates an opposing energy of equal intensity that, in the end, leads to their downfall. In the meantime, they make themselves and many others unhappy, or, in the larger than life examples, create hell on earth. Most egos have conflicting wants. They want different things at different times, or may not even know what they want, except that they don't want what is the present moment. Unease, resentlessness, boredom, anxiety, dissatisfaction are the results of unfulfilled wanting. Wanting is structural. So no amount of content can provide lasting fulfillment as long as that mental structure remains in place. Intense wanting that has no specific object can be found, often be found in the still developing ego of teenagers, some of whom are in permanent state of negativity and dissatisfaction. The physical needs for food, water, shelter, clothing, and basic comforts could be easily met for all humans on the planet, were it not for the imbalance of resources created by the insane and the rapacious need for more, the greed of the ego. It finds collective expression in the economic structures of this world, such as the huge corporations, which are egoic entities that compete with each other for more. Their only blind aim is profit. They pursue that aim with absolute ruthlessness. Nature, animals, people, even their own employees are no more than digits on a balance sheet, lifeless objects to be used and then discarded. The thought forms of me and mine, of more than, of I want, I need, I must have, and of not enough pertain not to content but to the structure of the ego. The content is interchangeable. As long as you don't recognize those thought forms within yourself, as long as they remain unconscious, you will become in what they say. You will be condemned to acting out those unconscious thoughts, condemned to seeking and not finding. Because when those thought forms operate, no possession, place, person, or condition will ever satisfy you. No content will satisfy you as long as the egoic structure remains in place. No matter what you have or get, you won't be happy. You will always be looking for something else that promises greater fulfillment, that promises to make your incomplete sense of self complete, and find that sense of lack you feel within. That's how, जब हम और दे दो, I want more. It's like I remember the very nice example we used to be shared, by fellow peer members and some, एक दो साल सीनियर. जब आप स्कूल कर ले हुए ना, मस्त लाइफ. उसके बाद कॉलेज कर लोगे ना, बस लाइफ तो अल्टीमेट है. जॉब लग जाएगी ना, सोर्स ऑफ इनकम बन जाएगा ना, मस्त लाइफ, सोर्स ऑफ इनकम. शादी करनी तो बहुत जरूरी होती है. शादी कर दोगे ना, लाइफ सेट है. शादी भी होगी, बच्चे जब होंगे ना, लाइफ सेट हो जाएगी. बच्चे भी कर लेते हैं, लाइफ सेट हो जाएगी. बच्चे बड़े हो जाएंगे ना, लाइफ सेट हो जाएगी. बच्चे बड़े भी हो जाएंगे, लाइफ सेट हो जाएगी. जब बच्चों की शादी हो जाएगी ना, लाइफ सेट. I mean, it's an ongoing thing where you are that dog who has this meat, life set, happiness, and you're just running after that. वो कभी नहीं आता है. because जब वो आ जाता है, it expires in some time and then you're looking for more. It expires and then you're looking for more. It's like you are just moving your targets and goals because that association of your happiness, of your fulfillment with that external goal is your ultimate desire. उस पूरी जर्नी में हमने किया क्या? जस्ट एक एक्सपेक्टेशन थी, ये हो जाएगा तो मजा आ जाएगा, ये हो जाएगा तो बढ़िया हो जाएगा, ये हो जाएगा तो खुशी आ जाएगी. हेलो, जर्नी का क्या? your state of happiness, your state of fulfillment is not based on anything that is external to you. It is not based on the realization or the fulfillment of having any object or having any desire completed or having any want completed or have anything of your possession or a goal to be completed. That's just your mind and your ego in order to gain more attention and attention, you're in that rut, you're in that race. And you forget that happiness is your true state of being. And you forget one basic golden rule, that your happiness and your love does not have any conditions. It's unconditional, truly, deeply unconditional. It's only because of the vested interest of a few that they create this image through your belief systems, through your upbringing, that happiness is outside of you. Because that happiness outside of you and your journey struggle to get that happiness gives them profits, satisfies their ego. And your ego wants to compete with their ego for that external happiness. It's basically as simple as that. So just check, मैं जहां हूं मैं खुश हूं. I mean, I'll tell you one basic thing and one basic realization for which you need to be truly, deeply, madly thankful is this breath. क्योंकि ये है तो सब कुछ है, और ये नहीं है तो जो वहां बैठा है इस क्लास में जहां में है वो भी नहीं है. मामला खत्म. So be in the moment, be present in the now, and be thankful that if there is breath, if I have this moment, then yes, a lot is possible. And not just run after that meat कि जब वो हो जाएगा then I will be happy. No, you are spoiling your journey. Beautiful, fantastic journey you have here on planet Earth for an external accomplishment with the negative thought put in by others that will give you happiness. Even if it does, it is short-lived. It will always be. Because anything and everything which has a condition or which is based on certain conditions, and if it's outside of you, has a validity and an expiry date. Hello. But what you truly are, uski koi expiry date nahi hai. The soul is eternal. It's just that the soul is here for certain experiences. And happiness and love is your innate nature of your being who's inside of you. And it is totally and purely unconditional. Conditions, mind और दुनिया या दुनिया में रहने वाले other human beings के बनाए हुए हैं. And they have been put into your head as part of your programming, upbringing, beliefs, and conditioning throughout your upbringing. And because of that, you feel anything that is outside of you, my goal, will give me happiness. Because happiness, as per what I have learned or as per what I have taught, is conditional. And as a result, I see a lot of people have a lot of money, but they do not have sleep at night. Hello. And at the same time, I see people who do not have money have a fantastic peaceful sleep even on the roadside. So what is it that we are running for? What is it that we are running towards? You know, it's like you are spending everything. You're doing a lot of work, compromising your health, compromising your family, compromising your relationships, your personal everything for an external thing, probably money or something. And then when you get there, I see a lot of cases where whatever money has been earned at the cost of health is spent on the health which was ignored earlier. Nature will always balance itself. It's better we do it right now and enjoy this journey in a balanced way. rather than एक चीज के पीछे भाग रहे हैं, पीछे वाले सबको छोड़ रहे हैं। क्यों? The purpose is to have fun, is to enjoy the journey, not be driven by the pleasures of the ego, the pleasures of the external things, or the pleasures of the prejudices of the mind. It's to enjoy each and every moment with the very clear understanding that my happiness and love is my true nature, and it does not have conditions. It's plain simple like that. So we're done for the reading for today.